I mean, people were kind of restless. They were waiting. Metallica's supposed to come on at 8:30, and they're still not out there. It's like 8:45, and Brewer's out here running around talking. There's people behind me. I can't repeat some of the stuff they were saying, and I don't think it was necessarily directed to Brewer. I think they were just restless, but they were kind of telling this, to put it nicely, they were kind of telling him to shut up and get off the stage. We want to see Metallica. So, like I said, I missed most of his act. I didn't really know what he was even saying. He was more like of a hype person anyways. I will say I respect the fact that after he, I don't know, like, again, missed the first part of his act. I don't know if he was telling jokes, maybe just talking with the crowd, telling his life story. Man, I don't know. All I know is when I took my seat, he started getting kind of the crowd fired up by playing songs from Titan heavy bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden. They had AC/DC. Who else? They had Motorhead, and even Johnny Cash got a shout out, got some love from the crowd. They were just putting lyrics up on the scoreboard, and everyone was just like singing along and like. And actually, at one point, he played a medley from Metallica's "And Justice for All" album, and he was like saying, scream like this song. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like, what song is this? What song's this? So he was like quizzing the crowd and playing around with them and all. I mean, it was cool, but again, we wanted to see Metallica. People were getting restless, and finally, once he kind of skirted off to the side after promoting, hey, come see me, next month, blah blah. Of course, I knew he was gonna slide self promotion in there. I'm like, come on, man. I'm sure the show is gonna be great, but I'm not concerned with your show right now. I want to see Metallica. And they came out. And again, Metallica put on one heck of a show. Let's see, they covered, if I can remember the set list off the top of my head, The Unforgiven they played. They played One, Seek and Destroy, For Whom the Bell Tolls, which was pretty intense. They also covered Master of Puppets, as expected, Creeping Death. What else did they play? They did play tracks off of Hardwire, Atlas Rise. What else did they play? I can't remember. Those are the only ones I can remember off the top of my head at the moment. And then, like I said, the concert went well. They killed it. And then they originally left. They departed the stage. They left. I forget what was the final song that they closed out the intended scripted set list. But yeah, so they get off the stage after they're done with their scripted set list, and the crowd's going crazy. We want to see him go back on stage. Everyone's yelling, and what do you know? Hetfield comes running back out, along with Lars and the crowd. And the boys. They come all out, and the boys. They all come back out, and they play an encore. They play 3 songs. They played Battery, Nothing Else Matters, and they close it off with Enter Sandman. But wow, when Battery started playing, the crowd went insane. First of all, they were just obviously excited to see Metallica back out there, but also, oh my goodness, the floor seats, or I shouldn't say seats, but people who were on the floor, my goodness, they were going insane. The mosh pits that ensued during Battery, I was pretty envious. That looked like a good time down there. If you had probably $650 to spare, and a struggling college fellow like me does not have that kind of money. I wish I did, but this cruel world, man, just it did not let me have that kind of flexibility financially, unfortunately. But of course, as one might expect, a lot of brews were being slammed. They actually had a souvenir edition Metallica beer. I think it was Bud Light that they were selling. A skunky odor, of course, made its way around me. I think you all know what that stems from. Surprising. I don't know how this skunky odor was able to infiltrate the arena. I don't know, or maybe just to get a job. But he shouldn't. He was being very humble there. But Hetfield, the music that you and Metallica have created, that is a work of art. What you're doing is a job. You're a musician, Hetfield, so you don't got to sell yourself short like that. But he was being humble though. And I respect that. And he also, was very, very pleased to see the amount of young fans that were present at the show. And that's one thing I definitely did note, was you had quite a wide range of an age group there. So definitely saw, obviously, I saw a few old people, like old people, middle-aged people, like I'd say probably took up most of, we've had a pie chart here, they took up probably the largest majority, but they were quite a young following at the show. And I mean, I'm not surprised to see that, honestly. I know Metallica has kind of still remained, relevant among the youth, decade by decade. I mean, their music is pretty timeless, so I really wasn't surprised to see that. But yeah, I mean, and yeah, I want to also mention the fact that using the bathroom is a little bit of an obstacle. You got to kind of do that whole, you're all, first of all, we're on the nosebleeds against, we're seated in chairs, and you kind of have to do that whole, like, excuse me, oh God, the music's so loud, I don't know if you can hear me, let me just kind of squeeze on through you here, get to the bathroom, the line is literally, it looks like the Jordan Midnight release or something, it looks like an Apple release or something. I mean, the line is just so long, and it's like I was getting sent off to war or something when I got up front to use the next open urinal. Just some guy in this, scruffy voice, "You're up next." I'm like, oh, geez, all right. But yeah, all in all, it was a phenomenal concert. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And how long does Metallica have it in them? I don't know. I don't know how long they plan on touring here. Like I said, they do have another set of tour dates coming up later in the spring here. But when's the next time they're coming back to Cleveland? And after they finish those next scheduled tour dates, how long do they really have it in them? Now that, I don't know. But I will tell you right now, this was a very, very monumental moment for me. Even with being in the nosebleeds, even with, being so far away, having to zoom in on my phone just to, kind of get pictures of Metallica, being so far away, I have to, like, zoom in, the quality's kind of all fuzzy and noisy, and, like, even with the, the seats being so far, I'm just glad that I had the chance to see them, the opportunity to see them, and that's something I can say. It's a very, like, bucket list moment, if you will, that I got to see them, and they played great, and the group of us, all of us, were very, very happy with the performance. My friend's dad, first of all, I need to shout him out for, setting this plan up together and for treating us to a really, really good night. I mean, he's awesome, and he actually has seen Metallica like 7 times, and he definitely, he said they sounded great. They were note for note the entire night. And I asked him, like, is this your how does this rank up there in the other times that you've seen him? He's like, well, I had a lot closer seats. He chuckled, and I laughed. But yeah, it was just really, really great show, and the queue was rocking. Cleveland enjoyed it, and glad to see it. So Metallica at the Q was a huge success. Great show. Excuse me. Okay. So we started off with "Move Over" from Janis Joplin. Then we played "Created by You" by the Tages. Then came "I Don't Live Today" from Jimi Hendrix. And then, again to reiterate, "A Legal Matter" from The Who. The Who. Really, really good song. And Pete Townsend is on lead there. I admire his vocals. I definitely am more of I prefer the Roger Daltrey kind of power to his vocals. I think Roger Daltrey is without a doubt the better vocalist, but it's good to get some Pete Townsend lead vocals, some lead cuts up in ya. But anyways, okay, so now we're going to enter the next segment of the show under further review, and I wanted to kind of go ahead and highlight a musician that I look up to, and his work that I look up to, and what he did with the Beach Boys, and that is Brian Wilson. But before we get into that, I'd like to go ahead and fill you in on something coming up This is a public service announcement with guitars. International Clash Day is happening on February 7th. Black Squirrel Radio and the town of Kent are proud Clash Day participants. Tune into BSR for special holiday programming and to learn about the numerous events taking place in Kent all weekend long. There will be concerts, poetry readings, documentary presentations, and more happening on and off campus from February 7th to the 9th. Stay tuned to BlackSquirrelRadio.com to learn more and check out International Clash Day Kent on Facebook for full event details. Okay. Please look into that. Please look into that. To all of you listeners. Now, Brian Wilson, where do I even start? Okay, well, first of all, personally speaking here, I got introduced to the Beach Boys. It was a while ago. But when did I actually really start getting into the Beach Boys? I'd say it was my senior year of high school, and it was through their most popular album and one that is so critically acclaimed, Pet Sounds. That was just, I first of all read about how critically acclaimed it was, how popular it was, and it was also when I talked to fellow friends, first thing they mentioned, check out Pet Sounds. Just flock right through it. That'll kind of open up the doors for the Beach Boys for you. And you know what? It did. It's a phenomenal album, and I'm pretty much obsessed over that album, listened to it continually over and over and over again. And then, from there, I moved on to, Summer Days and Summer Nights, moved on to Surfer Girl, basically the rest of their discography. Of course, we never did get Smile because of Brian Wilson's, imminent collapse. Although Smile would be played live in the early 2000s, so he would eventually get back to it, but it was just put off for so long. But yeah, like I said though, basically then just checked out the rest of their discography, and I found myself really kind of becoming infatuated and very impressed by the musical talent, the musical ability that Brian Wilson possesses and that he showcased through his music. So much so that I actually went out, this was in December, I went out and bought Brian Wilson's autobiography, his personal memoir, and it's titled I Am Brian Wilson, and it's just him uncut, unplugged, just basically laying it all out there. I mean, who he is as a person, his family life, what that experience was like with the Beach Boys, and it's a phenomenal read. It's very powerful. It's very personal, and it really does provide an inside look and a look into the mind of a troubled genius. I'd certainly say. I mean, in the book, he does talk about battling voices and struggling with mental illness, and that how that had an effect not only with his bandmates but also with his first relationship. Brian Wilson had to kind of tackle that, and then also as well, drug use that came down the line definitely did not help out that battle. But Brian Wilson has remained formidable. He's been strong. He's struck through it. Up to this point. But one of the things that really kind of stood out to me was, I'd say something from the book that I want to go ahead and probably mention is how much work was put into Pet Sounds. I mean, okay, and I get it. Pet Sounds is already critically acclaimed. Do I really need to say anything about it anymore? Well, here's the thing, I do. Because the amount of work, the amount of effort that was put into Pet Sounds is insane. I mean, Al Jardine and Mike Love, they're, of course, the other members of the Beach Boys are still living. Carl Wilson is deceased. He's been gone for quite a long time, and Carl Wilson died, I think it was 98, just before we got into the new millennium. But, so, if, they could definitely still pretty much second that, confirm how intense those sessions where, of course, Mike Love, though, and Brian Wilson, I don't know what their relationship is as of now, but I know Al Jardine and Brian Wilson still do collaborate. They still do play together. But it was just so intense with what Brian Wilson envisioned with Pet Sounds. And certainly he mentioned Phil Spector, a producer, a very infamous producer, considering the fact that he ended up being jailed, I think it was in '02, for murder. But nonetheless, he mentioned Phil Spector early on, though, when Brian Wilson was getting into music, when he realized that he wanted to make a band, as being the biggest influence to him in regards to sound, in regard to, engineering, how to, like, have this fulfilling record. And one of the things that he noted in the book that he always loved with Phil Spector's produced songs is just how, like, loud the drums would be, just how of kind of a just intense song it'd be, because one of Phil Spector's signature would have like loud booming drums, basically. And you see that actually a lot throughout Pet Sounds when you listen to it. And I remember there was a note made with God Only Knows, which was just a huge hit from the Beach Boys. I mean, it's definitely one of their most popular, if not their most popular song. God Only Knows, first of all, not only did Brian Wilson want Carl to sing lead, and he thought, it'd be rightfully so for Carl to sing it, but it's also, I think Brian Wilson said they had about like 15 people in on the session, from the background vocals to the wide arrangement of instruments. I mean, 15 people for this session, for the production of this song. I mean, that, to have that many people, in the studio atmosphere, and you're pushing them take after take after take, that's pretty intense. And that's probably the biggest and like most distinguishable trait of Brian Wilson, is how much of a perfectionist he is, how much he strives for the best finished product. He refuses to sell himself short, his idea short, in the name of just releasing something. And he talked many times about how Capitol Records, actually, first of all, Capitol Records wasn't really a whole fan of Pet Sounds when it was first conceptualized, when it was first brought up to them. They were not a big fan of the idea. And Sloop John B, although it did well, especially internationally, that single did phenomenal, Capitol Records was still being very abrasive with Brian Wilson, and just kind of, I don't know, I think there was a sense of skepticism, like, is this project going to be too big? Can Brian Wilson really, create this this masterpiece, essentially? And Brian Wilson does reference in the book the Rubber Soul by the Beatles had a lot to do with the makings of Pet Sounds. And he stated Norwegian Wood, he fell in love with that song. He fell in love with the McCartney pen tunes. What was it? He fell in love with, I can't think of it on the top of my head right now. Okay, I'm going to have to pull up the track listing from Rubber Soul. I'm sorry, I can't think right now. At the moment, the song's on top of my head. Okay, You Won't See Me and I'm Looking Through You. He mentioned both of those songs, both McCartney tunes, although credited to the McCartney-Lennon songwriting partnership. He mentioned both of those songs as being other personal favorites from the album too. But anyways, so yeah, he listened to Rubber Soul and he just fell in love with the folk rock direction that the Beatles were taking. That was a huge turning point for the Beatles in their career, and he just fell in love with that album sonically, and that pushed him, that motivated him. Okay, so the Beatles, first of all, they've been the hottest act on the scene here in regard to rock music. I mean, geez, the Beatles are, talk of town. They come from the UK, the British invasion is initiated, and they just take over. So Rubber Soul is a great record. I need to, and maybe he didn't say it this way. He did not mention saying it this way in the book. It was more of just, I appreciate it as a work of art, so I wanted to make Pet Sounds, but I kind of view it as like, I need to one-up these guys. Maybe not necessarily one-up them, but like, what is the response from us, the Beach Boys, who are also a very big act on the scene? And there you go, your response was Pet Sounds, which was again just a phenomenal record. We do have a couple Pet Sounds tracks coming up here shortly, but yeah, so Pet Sounds are released, and then what do you know, the Beatles respond essentially with Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's, which were both huge changes of direction for the Beatles yet again, and they were just both so commercially successful and just from an artistic standpoint. I mean, both albums were quite groundbreaking. And then, of course, the Beach Boys then wanted to go ahead and create Smile, which was supposed to be the album that would follow Pet Sounds, but that did not happen as Brian Wilson pretty much succumbed to the pressures in his life at that point, and Smile never came to fruition during the latter half of the 60s. So, but that kind of, I always found that, and Paul McCartney and Brian Wilson, and this was also noted in the book, Brian Wilson and Paul McCartney, they've gotten together numerous times over the year, just whether they are performing together for the Queen of England, or if they just want to get together and just talk music and just hang out, like you'll hang out with your friend, in this case, just Paul McCartney and Brian Wilson, two exceptional musicians just hanging out. And he talks about them sitting at the piano together and, reciting some of their own melodies, and, maybe they're coming up with something new. And it's just really kind of heartwarming to see the admiration between those two artists. And Paul McCartney has actually said that God Only Knows, I don't know if this still holds true, but he has been on the record for saying God Only Knows is his favorite song. It's like one of the most beautiful songs he's ever heard. And Paul McCartney actually teared up upon the first listening of God Only Knows, because he thought it was just that powerful, that angelic, that eternal, because it is a really, really moving song. So yeah, Brian Wilson, I mean, he references his family life, and, he references that, he has a lot of appreciation for his parents and for kind of, supporting him, Carl, and Dennis along the way. Unfortunately, he does reference a very turbulent relationship with his father, although his father was very supportive of their music. And his father would actually wrote songs himself, and his father is kind of responsible for getting their foot through the door with Capitol Records and with kind of, promoting their songs from there onward. He was also noted as kind of having personal issues, drinking issues, and he was abusive towards Brian and Dennis and Carl, and more so Dennis. Brian, which is actually, it's not surprising considering the fact that there's a lot of stories that circulate about how crazy Dennis was. But yeah, he said Dennis was probably like the biggest instigator for their father, and like there was just a very, very turbulent relationship that kind of affected Brian, certainly. But again, he's a musician that I respect greatly. I respect the Beach Boys' music enormously. They're a phenomenal band, and that kind of competition that they had with the Beatles, I mean, these were two huge bands, and for them to be just competing with one another, I thought it was just a really, really good thing for music. I mean, it resulted in phenomenal pieces of work, great albums that were produced in that latter half of the 60s. And I definitely recommend, if this has enticed you in any way, to go ahead and pick up I Am Brian Wilson. Go out, buy it, check it out, read it. It's very enjoyable. Even if you're not a Beach Boys fan, even if you just want a piece of music history that you can look into, I definitely recommend that you get that book, you read it, you listen to the music, and then you'll kind of get a sense of like just how much Brian Wilson put his life into the music that he produced. I mean, they both go hand in hand. I mean, you could say that for any artist, obviously, but I mean, with how heartfelt and genuine I feel like the Beach Boys music is. I mean, it's a sense of appreciation that's furthermore gained once you look into the personal life of the Wilson brothers. And of course, Al Jardine is a great musician too. He was a part of the ride, and Mike Love too. Mike Love, who is the uncle of Kevin Love. Do you want to throw that out there? There's actually a clip on YouTube where Mike Love mentions, gives a shout out to Kevin. But anyways, I have some Beach Boy tracks coming up here. It's a 3-send. We're gonna have 3 tracks coming your way from the Beach Boys. I'm gonna go ahead and get those loaded up, and I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to go ahead and mention here about Brian Wilson. but I don't know. I can't quite put my head on it. There was something I did find interesting about Brian Wilson was he had a distaste for flying, and there was actually a point in time where it was, I think, in the year of 64, 65, the Beach Boys were supposed to fly out for a show in Houston, and Brian Wilson did not get on the plane. He did not get on the plane. He had a mental breakdown, I guess. He just was I can't do this, and he sat out for a good portion of their tour that year. You'll notice throughout the book, if you do read it, if you do check it out, continually he references the year of 64 as that was the year. He refers it continually over and over again. That was the year where everything happened, and I guess by that, I think it was the fact that the Beach Boys were starting to hit the peak of their success. That's when when he started kind of succumbing to the mental struggles that he was dealing with, and then just also the pressures with his bandmates and the labels. So 64 was, a huge year for Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with the trifecta, with the 3 songs from the Beach Boys, and we're going to go ahead and start off with a live rendition of Good Vibrations, 1967 live rendition. Here we go. Just rolled, that just introduced you to, or at least I hope introduced you to the magic of Brian Wilson, were Good Vibrations, again, live cut from 1967, and another live cut, California Girls, followed that song. And then we finished it off with I Just Wasn't Made for These Times off of Pet Sounds. Probably my personal favorite track off of that album, although That's Not Me is also very good too. I also lied. I said there were going to be 2 cuts off of Pet Sounds, so I lied a little before we entered that segment. I apologize. I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't break anybody's trust here. Okay, I don't know why I'm just rambling on like that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the current. Yes, that is the next segment. And, I probably should have explained these segments earlier. Well, first of all, actually, before we go on any further, we have a ad coming up. So please, I will return in just a moment. That is very, very true. Please go check out the content that is online on BlackSquirrelRadio.com. A lot of great articles out there. Please give them a read. Support them. Believe me, the web staff is awesome. It's a pleasure working with them. I actually have a Deer Hunter album review coming up. It should, if it hasn't already been posted, it's going to be posted probably tomorrow. So please go check out the numerous articles, all the content that is on the website. The web staff, they definitely put in quite a bit of work, so please support them. But anyways, so we had the 2 segments that, and I didn't get to really clarify this last week because, again, I had no script. You know how it went. Sunday I find out my time slot to show. It was a quick turnaround. I should have dealt with homework earlier than I actually did deal with it, and it threw me off for writing a script last week. So 2 segments are going to be accompanying every show, and that is Under Further Review, which is where we actually kind of document a piece of it's basically a snapshot of music history in the 60s, and a couple times I think, because especially considering how turbulent the 60s were, definitely want to talk about some of the social movements and phenomenons that went on during that time. So that's Under Further Review. That is a snapshot of this is what happened during this period of time in the 60s. And then we have The Current, which is, hey, this is what's some of the stuff that's going on now in the music industry. And so it's not totally stagnant. It's not totally stuck in neutral in an era that not everyone is interested in. So, without further ado, we are entering The Current, and I'd like to go ahead and start off by talking about Earl Sweatshirt. Yes, Earl Sweatshirt dropped a short film, if you will. It's like a music short film titled Nowhere Nobody. And I actually first saw this when I got on YouTube, and it was in the recommended video, and I'm like, whoa, did Earl Sweatshirt drop a new song? I'm like, that's crazy. I didn't go listen to it because I loved some rap songs. Some rap songs was a phenomenal personal record by Earl. Loved it, and I'm like, wow, he's really active. Okay, so I click the video, and no, it's not a new song. It is a short film that, first of all, I'm not gonna even try to be some art buff here, or some artistic expert here. Like, I'm not gonna try to break this down for you and say what the scenes mean, or like anything like that. No. Plus, I haven't watched it enough really to gain much of a opinion on it, because it's just so experimental and just out there. It's really cool. I definitely recommend checking it out, and I want to applaud Earl Sweatshirt for going down this artistic route. Because you think of his counterpart as contemporary, or rather former contemporary. I don't know how close they are now, but Tyler, the creator, has obviously been kind of gravitating towards other avenues to express his creativity, and now Earl Sweatshirt is seemingly kind of blossoming into his own, going and chasing other avenues and expressing his creativity, and I admire that. That's really awesome, and because I love Earl Sweatshirt. He is an artist I hold dear to my heart. I'd have to say, Tyler, the creator, is probably my favorite from the OF collective, but man, Frank and Earl are right there too. So yeah, like I said, it's a short film. It takes snippets from some rap songs, and the scenes do tie in with the songs. And but again, I'm not gonna sit here and try to like really talk about and explain scenes. Also, because I don't have that much time either to go ahead and dedicate to any explanation like that. Maybe we can do that next week, maybe. But you see, there's really no point, because I think it's just so open for interpretation that you definitely just got to go check it out on your own. It is titled Nowhere, Nobody. And again, I really applaud Earl for going down this kind of creative avenue and doing something experimental like this. And there's actually a nice tribute to his father there at the end of the video, which, I mean, it's pretty obvious. But it's a very, very it's like a big step in the maturation of Earl Sweatshirt, and I just love what he's doing. And I was a big fan of some rap songs. I wrote a review on that. I'd have to say my favorite album by him is still Doris, and the self-titled Earl mixtape is a classic too. But wow, some rap songs was good. It definitely was good, and he's pretty much hit a home run with every album. I've liked every album that he's put out. So definitely big kudos, big credit to Earl Sweatshirt for that very cool creative endeavor there. Now, geez, I feel like I just said cool like at least 20 times in the past minute and a half. Moving on to the next topic of discussion, Cage the Elephant released a new single last Thursday. Yes, Ready to Let Go, which I like a lot. It sounds very smooth. It's very well produced. It has some bite to it, but it's, I'd say, kind of like a lighter song for Cage, but it has a bite to it. It has a certain aggression to it, and it has me excited to see where Cage is gonna go. Again, the production sounds really, really good, and I'm very excited for that. Obviously, Tell Me I'm Pretty was a huge success, released in 2015. Excuse me, not 2015, 2016. But anyways, wait, am I right there? It's either 2015 or 2016. I'm sorry. These dates are slipping out of my head. Let me actually confirm this right now. I just want to make sure I'm... So, yeah, 2015. Okay, it was at the tail end of 2015, end of December. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, Tell Me I'm Pretty was critically acclaimed, really successful. You had a Black Keys finger in there, the Black Keys. I don't know if Patrick Carney had anything to it. I think it was just Dan Auerbach, but he was involved with the production of the album, and it was a very gritty album. So you had the Black Keys tone to Tell Me I'm Pretty, but again, did very, very well. Very enjoyable record from Cage, or at least, personally speaking, I liked it. And again, I'm really excited. Ready to Let Go is an enjoyable song. It's definitely a single material. It's definitely, I think they made the right... I mean, obviously, I don't have access to the other tapes, other cuts, any demos that they have. But for that to be a single leading up for their next album, I mean, I thought, hey, it's great. I love it. And again, I'm just very, very excited to see where Cage goes from here. I mean, what do they have in store for us? If you haven't checked out Ready to Let Go, please do. It's a really, really enjoyable listen. And the other day, I revisited, I was revisiting some of their older work, and I turned on Saber-Tooth Tiger, and I have a friend who has a very, very strong feeling about that song in a good way. He enjoys that song, goes crazy over it, and it's just so crazy how heavy Cage can get, and just how loud and boisterous and just unsettling they can get. I mean, I love the fact that Cage has a pretty wide variety of styles that they can turn to and that they express in their music. And they're from, again, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Shout out. Now, I'm a Bowling Green, Kentucky fella myself. I mean, I only lived there for 3 months, but, I was a baby. I was 3 months old when I was, chucking up the deuces to Bowling Green. But, hey, man, I got to give a shout out to the hometown band, even though I can't really call Bowling Green my hometown. But anyways, moving on. Also, Fiddler dropped an album last week. I have actually not listened to it all the way through. I've not gotten to listen to all of it yet, but I will say this, from the songs that I've heard, from the cuts that I've listened to thus far, there's a very blues rock kind of feel to it. I mean, the song Alcohol is definitely, like, I won't say classic Fiddler. I mean, it's heavy, but it isn't as heavy as their earlier work. But the other cuts here, I'm about to pull up the track listing. So, oh my goodness, wait, where's it at? Bear with me. Okay, so Can't You See and Almost Free as well, both of those cuts, blues rock. I like the direction they were going with there. Scam Likely, it's really interesting. They have a brass section throughout that song, and it's kind of upbeat. Not heavy or anything. I mean, it's just like, I thought it was interesting, the fact that they had, some brass instrumentation in that cut. That was cool. And again, then you have Alcohol off of that album that's heavy. That's the classic Fiddler. I mean, it's pretty disrespectful. It's pretty rude in its presentation. So I'm already seeing a pretty decent variety of sonically. I'm seeing a variety on this album. Have not listened to Almost Free all the way through, though. I will have to definitely do that tonight after the show. I want to give it one just clean sweep through, like just listen to it all the way through, and I'll probably write something up on it for BSR online, so I'll be on the lookout for that. But that will about do it for the currents. Normally I probably would have delved into at least one more topic here, but time is holding me by the neck a little bit right now. I am a little constrained, which speaks to my incompetence. I'm just kidding. It happens. But yeah, that is the current. I definitely hope you guys check out that Earl Sweatshirt short film. Check out the new Cage single, and check out Fiddler's album. Do it. What are you waiting for? Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and transition. That's an Anthony Fantano classic right there. If any of you are hip to Anthony Fantano, Transition. Anthony Fantano dropped a review on Kids Bop today. That's kind of geeky. I want to check that out. But before we get into the next cut that I want to go ahead and play for you guys, we have a commercial coming up for you. I love that ad. Can I just say right now how much I love that ad? Oh my goodness. All right. Well, anyways, we're going to go ahead and transition into, I won't call this a deep cut because it's by a very popular band, but man, this is out there. This next song that's coming up is from The Doors, Mr. Mojo Rising, Mr. Lizard King, and it is titled When the Music's Over. So, how do I even really describe this song? I mean, we have a poetry rendition in the middle of it. I mean, we have these infectious jazz keys from Ray Manzarek. I mean, I really can't do it any justice by explaining it, so I'm just going to have to play it for you. So this is When the Music's Over by The Doors. And again, this song is intense, so hang in your seat, grab yourself a beverage of choice, whether it be H2O, some green tea, some Arizona green tea that would go well with American Spirits and the Smiths discography. Just grab your beverage of choice, take a seat, maybe even close your eyes, because we're in for the long haul with this track. Without further ado, When the Music's Over by The Doors. So, what did all of you think? I said that was a pretty out there track, didn't I? That is When the Music's Over by The Doors. And it's a long cut. It definitely is a song that you're not throwing on as often as, say, Break On Through or The Crystal Ship, or, the quicker songs, People Are Strange. I'm thinking of also the more popular cuts. But yeah, it's not a song that you're going to be throwing on regularly. It's definitely something that you got to be in the mood for it, and you got to sit down and let it play out. But when you do, it's a journey. It's literally a journey. That song is intense. And a little story I want to say about that song is, if you haven't checked out, first of all, The Doors were a very hit or miss band live, mainly because sometimes they sounded kind of iffy, and also it didn't help that at times Morrison would be so hammered, so wasted, that he couldn't even stand up to perform. But when they were on their game, they were phenomenal. They were definitely a sight to see, a band you had to experience. And one concert, if anyone's interested in seeing a live show of The Doors, I highly recommend you go see their concert at the Hollywood Bowl in 1968. That is first of all, it's a great set list. The set list for that concert is great, but also, while I'm multitasking here, getting ready to load up the next song. So yeah, the set list is great, and I love the introduction to the show. First of all, a little tidbit, a little something I want to say here. Mick Jagger was at that concert. He was actually sitting front row with, I think, Pamela Courson, who was Jim Morrison's lifelong, well, I shouldn't say lifelong, but his companion throughout his adult life until his death. And then she died, I think, a couple years after he did. So, yeah, Mick Jagger is actually sitting in the front row. So we had a Stones presence there to witness The Doors. But anyways, that song, When the Music's Over, starts off the concert at the Hollywood Bowl, and it's actually even longer because there's an extended introduction from Ray Manzarek. I mean, he's just jamming out on his at that point. I think he converted from the Vox Continental to the Gibson organ, and he's just grooving. Actually, I don't even think it wasn't an organ, it was just an electric keyboard. But anyways, yeah, he's just grooving along. It's just this jazzy key solo. Manzarek is just going in. He's nodding his head with the with every key that bounces. He's just really becoming one with the music. Densmore is really antsy. You can see him shaking at his drum set. He's just ready to go. Krieger is subtly playing the couple light strums there at the beginning. Actually, no, it's just all Manzarek on the keys. Krieger as well is kind of antsy. He's moving back and forth. And Morrison, he actually, it is rumored, and Manzarek went on the record saying that he consumed some LSD prior to the show, and so this guy is literally hallucinating while he's getting ready to perform in front of a sold-out crowd at the Hollywood Bowl. And the Hollywood Bowl is an amphitheater. It's a really, really beautiful looking venue, and Ray Manzarek reflected on how much of a great honor it was to perform there and how they enjoyed the venue a lot. But anyways, and God, dude, when Densmore comes in, he just starts pounding away at his drums, and the keys, the drums, Krieger then jumps in. I mean, when the whole band in unison comes together, Morrison just breaks into a full sprint, jumps up, and just lets that hellish, iconic scream just radiate and really just unsettle any listener. I mean, it is such an aggressive, such a powerful scream, and like the live performance of it, the anticipation, the build up to that scream. I mean, it's live. It's a whole different thing to hear and with the footage see than hearing the studio cut of it. But that whole concert is really, really good. I highly recommend it. Spanish Caravan, they do a really, really good rendition of that song, and The Unknown Soldier, they do a really good rendition of that song in that concert. But man, the Doors live at the Hollywood Bowl '68. Check it out. You want to see when the music's over, if you want to see a visual component with it, if you want to see just how epic it is, and hear how epic it is when it's performed live, definitely go check out The Doors live at the Hollywood Bowl 1968. Just wanted to throw that out there. Now, the next song we have coming up is You Keep Me Hanging On by Vanilla Fudge. And this is a very heavy song. This came out in '67, and at the time, this was quite... I know The Who released in '67 as well. I Can See for Miles, which is a very heavy song, too. It's a very raunchy, very heavy song. But this song, You Keep Me Hanging On from Vanilla Fudge, is heavy. It's... I don't know if it'd be fair to say it's a prelude to, like, maybe a metal or, like, like that hard rock or into metal. I don't know if it's fair to say it's a prelude by any means, but it is just a very, very, very heavy song. And again, for '67, for that whole Summer of Love, for the whole like Flower Child, I don't know if I'd say stereotype, but the label that they throw on during that time, this was a very, very heavy song. So without further ado, You Keep Me Hanging On by Vanilla Fudge. Actually went on the record before of saying that Vanilla Fudge influenced Deep Purple greatly, and that I think he went as far as to say that they wanted to be like a Deep Purple, not Deep Purple clone, Vanilla Fudge clone. That heavy organ-driven music was very influential to Blackmore, or on Blackmore, and the music that Deep Purple made early on. Folks, can't stand Valentine's Day? Don't worry, Black Squirrel Radio has your back. Join us on February 15th in downtown Kent for an anti-Valentine's concert. This free show features various acts including The Near Past, Funeral Proposals, Smug, and more. Be BSR's date to our anti-Valentine's show at Standing Rock Cultural Arts Center from 7 to 10 p.m. on February 15th. Love might stink, but music rocks. See you there. It's a very, very true statement. Very, very true statement. Well, moving onward here, we're going to just really get into a heavy jam sesh now. We're going to have a lot of songs coming at you with the time that is remaining. So the next song that I have ready to go is by this band. I think they're called Led Zeppelin. Greta Van Fleet. I'm sorry, I mean Led Zeppelin. Okay, I like Greta. I just want to say that right now. I like him, but jeez, they sound like too much like Led Zeppelin. You already know I have to make that joke. That they're a cover band. I hate to say it. I'm ready for that more refreshing original material from Greta, I guess, is what I'm really trying to communicate. But I got to throw in that joke just at least once. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and play a song that is electric. It is intense. It is off of Led Zeppelin 1. A personal favorite of mine, like Physical Graffiti a lot, but man, Led Zeppelin 1, that blues rock sound is just so beautiful to the ears. And without further ado, this song is called Communication Breakdown by Led Zeppelin. Kill what's inside of you, said Jack Bruce and the rest of Cream. First of all, thank you. If you were tuning in to the Counterculture Experience, man, I only said this one time earlier. I didn't even say it during the halfway point. Turn on, tune in, drop out, said Timothy Leary. Thank you for tuning in to the Counterculture Experience. Search us Why am I saying us? Search Ramos, the Counterculture Experience. Search it up on Instagram, the Counterculture Experience. Jeez, can I talk? Search it up on Instagram and on Twitter. The account is CC Experience BSR. Again, the Counterculture Experience on Instagram. For Twitter, CC Experience BSR. I want to give a special thank you to a very, very close companion, a fellow, well, I shouldn't say fellow, but a DMP major who is actually in here in the studio with me, Mr. Matt Lineman. Oh my God, I almost said Lineman. Matt Lineman, he is in the studio. Asked him if he could, shoot some footage in here, and what do you know? The player comes in. I appreciate it, taking time out of his day to come in here and shoot some footage, crisp footage, as he continually does so. So again, big shout out to Mr. Matthew Lineman. All right, well, okay, so like I said, the first song that you heard there was Communication Breakdown from Led Zeppelin, 1969, off of Led Zeppelin 1. Love that song. And the song that you just heard was Strange Brew by Cream, which is a very, very trippy song, needless to say. That's definitely a very counterculture-esque song, if you will. Well, we are really nearing towards the end here of tonight. It went by really fast. It's crazy how these are the fastest 2 hours of the week, without a doubt. I guess it would make sense because I enjoy it. There's nothing better than, being in the studio, listening to the music that I'm passionate about, trying to open up the taste palettes of listeners who are tuning in, and also, just talking about music. I mean, this to me is just the greatest thing that one can possibly do. I mean, I fingers crossed here, but the overarching goal is to get into the industry, work for a publication, be around music. A career in music is very ideal, and I am going to be aiming to achieve that. And if I get my hands on it, if I'm able to muster the necessary ambition, that you really gotta work for it. Obviously, I'm given to you, but if I can find myself at some publication, that would be beautiful. That's the overarching goal here. I would be very, very happy. Well, we're going to go ahead and close out the show here with a light tune. It's a very beautiful tune. It is titled 9-Pound Hammer by the Boo Brummels, and it is off of their album Triangle, 1967. It's a very, very light tune. Love the arrangement. I think you, the listener, will also come to appreciate this song. So without further ado, 9-Pound Hammer.